What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. Welcome, everyone, to my Final Fantasy XIV job tier list. I'm looking forward to doing this because it's going to be a lot of fun. This tier list is not based on which jobs I think are the best, because I am not qualified to do that. This tier list is based on which jobs I think are the most fun to play. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt because it's all subjective, it's just my opinion. I have leveled up every single job to at least 70, and including the Blue Mage, including the Crafters even. We're not going to talk about those though. But I feel like I have a pretty good handle on how all the jobs play. They're all pretty fun, to be honest. There are some that I like more than others, and there are some that I had the wrong impression about first, and then my impressions change as time goes on. So yeah, we're going to talk about every job, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on them, and we're going to rank them according to which ones I think are the most fun to play. So let's get right into it. The first one is the Astrologian, better known as the Astrologian. I don't know why I like to say Astrologian, but there it is. So the Astrologian, thank you very much, is a healer. And then I want to say this right off the bat. I have been playing MMOs for about 15 years. I've been playing World of Warcraft for a very long time, and I've played some other MMOs. And Final Fantasy XIV is the first MMO that I have ever felt comfortable enough to heal in. For those of you that may not know, I am visually impaired. I have very, very low vision, and healing always seemed very intimidating for me. But in Final Fantasy XIV, I felt comfortable enough to give it a try. One of the reasons is because of controller support. That makes things a lot easier, and the way Final Fantasy XIV handles controller support is really awesome, and it works out really well, and it makes it pretty easy to navigate your party UI and provide healing. The other reason is just how dang awesome this community is. In Final Fantasy XIV, people are really nice, they're really understanding, and going into it, I knew that I would most likely find a group that would be cool with having a blind guy as their healer, and I didn't let anybody die. So I have healed, and I like it a lot. I've only done lower level dungeons. Most of my healing leveling was through like Palace of the Dead and stuff like that, and some, fates and just world stuff and MSQ. But I have experienced a little bit of healing with most of the healing jobs in dungeons a little bit, just lower level ones, because I'm still a little bit intimidated, but slowly but surely I want to get more comfortable, and I'm going to hop into doing more healing. So anyhow, I wanted to get that disclaimer out. So my healing experience is fairly limited, but I do enjoy it a lot. And with the Astrologian, I find the Astrologian to be very fun in concept and has a lot of cool abilities. I mean, you're basically playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, drawing cards, providing buffs, getting your seals, and the mechanics are really cool. However, for me as a newer healer, it was a little bit complicated, to be honest. And that's just, it's not as straightforward as another healing class, which we'll eventually talk about. And there's a level of randomness to it that also kind of made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm trying to focus on these other mechanics while also trying to keep people alive and deal damage. So it was kind of a lot for me. I think other people might really enjoy the Astrologian. It's a cool concept, but for a newbie like me, it was a little bit too much. So I'm going to put the Astrologian here under C. It's not necessarily a bad job by any means. It's certainly fun, I think, but it's a little bit too difficult for me. If you're new at healing, I don't recommend doing the Astrologian. I recommend doing a different one first. So yeah, keep that in mind. Next up is the Bard. Now, my feelings about the Bard have flip-flopped quite a lot. It was one of the first jobs I ever played. It may have actually been the first. It was either the Bard or the Monk. Anyways, I was expecting the Bard to be a lot different than it actually was. The Bard has dots, it has procs and things like that, and then buffs, and I wasn't really expecting a lot of that. And so at first I was a little bit disappointed. I felt like it wasn't very impactful. I was like wanting to do a lot more like high damage as a ranged class, like quick damage and whatnot. And so at first I was like, It's okay, you know, it's not bad. There's some fun to be had with the Bard for sure, but then I got further and further into the Bard at higher levels, and the Bard started to get a lot more fun as time went on. So don't sleep on the Bard. If you feel like I do early on as a Bard, you decided to level up an Archer and you're going into Bard and you're like, I don't know, man, this isn't really that fun. Give it some time, give it a chance and level up, and I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you anything because it's all subjective, but in my opinion, as you level up and unlock more abilities, the Bard becomes way more fun, and the songs and the mechanics with the songs, pitch perfect, and how all those work, and just all the cool abilities you get are really fun, and those animations do pick up quite a lot. So I ended up enjoying the Bard quite a lot. So I'm going to put the Bard a solid A. It's not my favorite job, it's certainly not my favorite DPS job, but I do think that it is a lot of fun to play. It's one that I'm happy to switch to and get involved with, so I do enjoy it quite a lot. So the next one is the Black Mage. Now, this one's going to be controversial, okay? So there are people that love the Black Mage, and there are people that don't enjoy the Black Mage at all. I'm one of the people that Black Mage is not my favorite, okay? At first, it was because the Black Mage felt kind of slow, you know? Like, you kind of have to stand still, and you have these long cast times, and depending on what content you're doing, like if you're doing Palace of the Dead as a Black Mage, you're not really having a very good time because enemies are dying way faster than you can even get damage out there, right? So, and then of course if you're doing like open world stuff, it's slow and it feels very slow. The mechanics are pretty cool, and frankly they're fairly easy, but for me, as time went on and I was getting like 4 versions of fire and 4 versions of ice plus flare and like frost or freeze or whatever, I started to get really confused, and it got really difficult to keep track of what I was actually supposed to be doing. So part of that's on me. So it does pick up, but it goes from being kind of slow to being like, whoa, what am I doing here? So I think it's just a learning curve that I need to like get my head wrapped around. I play a lot of other jobs that I tend to favor ones that are more easy, but that's because I'm a somewhat newer player. I'm not really new. I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV for a long time, but I'm new at higher levels and more of the in-game content. So yeah, I want to say though, and I'm sorry to say this because I know a lot of people like the Black Mage though, it was one of my least favorite jobs to play, at least for now, so I'm going to put it on the D. I don't think that the Black Mage is a bad job. I think there's a lot of people that are going to love the Black Mage, and there are those that do, but for me, it's just not my cup of tea, if that makes sense. So I'm giving it a lower rank because it's not my personal tastes, and that's how this all is going to be. So don't get mad at me, please put your pitchforks down. I'm not dissing the Black Mage, it's cool, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So the next one is the Dancer. Now the Dancer really caught me off guard because I did not know what to expect. It's one of the jobs you unlock at a much higher level. I believe you unlock it at 60, so you already have a lot of abilities. And to be honest, compared to other jobs by level 60, it is a little bare bones. It's not really bare bones, it's really simple. Like, it's not a very hard job to play at all. There are procs, they're pretty easy to use, you know, just weaving in your OCDs with your combos, and then you have 2 really simple combos. You have a single target combo and an AoE combo, and honestly, it's really fun. The animations are really cool. It's kind of weird because I'm this big burly Highlander with a big beard, you know, and looking all tough, and I'm like dancing around. I'm like, it doesn't really fit my character, but I like the class anyways. Or the job, rather, sorry. Too much time playing World of Warcraft. Anyhow, so the thing about the Dancer, though, is you have this dancing mechanic where you basically do like a quick, it's almost like a Simon Says kind of mechanic where you just have to put a sequence in to do the dance moves, and then you get a buff that lasts for a short time, and then you keep doing that, and the dance also does damage. And I actually found that to be really fun. Something different. I've never really seen that type of mechanic in an MMO, and I actually found it very refreshing. So I personally really enjoy the Dancer a lot. It's one of my favorite range jobs to play, and for me, a lot of people, again, might disagree with this because it's not a high damage job. It's more about the buffs it provides. I still find the Dancer to be a lot of fun to play. It's a solid S for me. I'm always happy to play the Dancer. It's a lot of fun, you know, and I just really enjoy playing it. So that's a solid S. One of my favorite jobs in the game is the Dancer. And speaking of favorite jobs, let's talk about the Dark Knight. Okay, I'm not going to really mention the class story or the job storyline, and it's not really going to factor in here, but when it comes to job storylines, the Dark Knight is the best one by far. There are some pretty good job storylines in the game, but the Dark Knight one is really, really freaking good. It's some of the best story in the game, in my opinion, and that's also true for the job itself. The Dark Knight is probably my favorite tank to play in the game. It is so much fun. It's like a tank that feels a lot like a DPS. And I want to be honest here, like this applies to every job. I'm still fairly new, with leveling up all these jobs, even though I've played for a good while now. I've been playing Final Fantasy for over 2 years on and off. But, I'm still learning. And I'm pretty sure I'm not really playing any of these jobs exactly correctly. But for me, the Dark Knight felt like a tank that happens to play like a DPS, and I really enjoyed it. It kind of, it's not at all like the Death Knight in WoW, but it kind of has the same kind of vibe. You're just like this dark warrior, and you have this purple aura going on. It looks really cool. Your moves look awesome, and it feels like you're just really impactful with your big two-handed sword, and the mechanics are fairly easy and pretty fun to play. You literally have one mechanic as a tank where you can like take your HP down. Like if it gets down to 0, you'll be like Walking Dead. And if you get healed up to max, then you actually won't die, and that's a pretty awesome ability. So I really, really enjoy the Dark Knight as a tank. It's not the easiest tank to play by any means, but to me it's the most fun. So I'm going to put the Dark Knight as a solid S. It's one of my favorite jobs in the game. Dark Knight is awesome, so I highly recommend that you give it a try. If you're new to tanking, it may not be the best choice to go with right away. Of course, you do have to unlock it by getting to a certain level anyways. Same with the Astrologian and some other jobs. But when you unlock it, I do recommend giving it a try because it is awesome, at least to get through that job storyline. It's worth it, man. Next up is the Dragoon. Now, this is very similar to how I felt about the Bard. This is another one of my first jobs. It wasn't my first one, but I did switch over to Lancer and level that up because I wanted to play the Dragoon, because when I was out doing dungeons and stuff, I would see people playing the Dragoon, and the animations that the Dragoon has are insane. People were just like jumping around, like you see all these lights and like blue and like fire and all this cool stuff happening, and I'm like, I gotta play that. That looks like fun. And it is. The Dragoon is a lot of fun. There's a lot of jumping abilities. There's a lot of buffs that give you access to more abilities, and like you just feel really powerful and really impactful. And it's nice to have a job in an MMO that is based entirely around spears. You don't really see that a lot, and it feels like kind of like the Dancer. It's a very unique job in the game. I really enjoy the Dragoon a lot, and much like the Bard, at first it's not that amazing at first. It kind of feels slow. You just kind of stick with doing this one combo and you get a couple of other abilities in, but as you level up, and really I would say once you start getting into the Heaven Sword content, it really starts to pick up and you really start to see things come together, and suddenly the Dragoon starts to look a lot more awesome. So again, it's another one of those, you have to invest a little bit, but I think it becomes a lot of fun as you go on. I'm going to put it right along with the Bard. I actually think the Dragoon's a little bit more fun to play than the Bard for me, so I give it a solid A. It's, again, not my favorite job, but it is a lot of fun. It's one I do enjoy playing, and it's honestly like right there between an A and an S in my opinion, because it is a lot of fun. So yeah, take that for what it is. Next up is the Gunbreaker. Now this is the other job that you unlock at level 60. And much like the Dark Knight, I really, really enjoy the Gunbreaker a lot. It kind of feels like a tank that plays like a DPS. And you get all these cool like damage abilities that you do all these cool combos, and it looks sweet. Like you're playing with a gunblade. That's awesome. It's the only other time in the game, really, it's the only time that you really get to play a game like this type of game with a bunch of abilities, and you feel like you're kind of playing like an action game as a Gunbreaker. It's not like, the only other time you play as a Gunbreaker, as far as I know, is the turn-based in Final Fantasy VIII. So it's really cool to see the Gunbreaker make a return. And it's fun. I really enjoy playing it. You literally have an ability where you can shoot yourself and take your health all the way down to like 1, but you give yourself a barrier and then your healers can heal you back up. It's really cool. It's a really cool mechanic. It requires a little bit of coordination, but it's really fun. And honestly, it's just a really fun job to play. The animations look really sweet. And again, it's another one of those, like, it's another tank that plays a lot like a DPS. It doesn't have the damage output of like a DPS, but it is a lot of fun to play. So for me, I like playing the Gunbreaker pretty much as I like playing the Dark Knight. They're both really cool. They're my 2 favorite tank jobs in the game. So I'm putting both of those as a solid S, in my opinion. I think they're both a lot of fun to play. And next up is the Machinist. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say it right off the bat. This is my favorite job in the game. It's the one job that I quickly leveled up to 80. It was my main for a long time. Once you unlock it, you have to get to level 50 first, and then you can unlock it at level 30 and then level it up from there. And so the Machinist is awesome. I really enjoyed it. It's the gun job, right? And here's the thing about it. This is a common theme. As a Machinist, like, it feels really cool at first because, you know, you're using guns, and guns are awesome. Guns are sweet. You have really cool glamours that you can equip that make you look like a cowboy, which is what I do. And it's awesome. But at first, like, you know, I'm visually impaired. A lot of the abilities look the same, and I do rely on my character's animations a lot to know what abilities I'm casting on the fly. And so all I'm doing is like pointing my gun and shooting at things, and I'm like, wait, did I hit the right ability there? You know, that kind of thing. So it can get kind of confusing a little bit at first, but then as you level up, your abilities upgrade, and then your ability that was kind of like a normal, boring animation becomes this really awesome, like, gun fu flipping in the air style animation. That's like something your Gunbreaker is just like flying in the air, flipping around, using his abilities. Like, it's really cool. And then you get like flamethrower, and you get turrets, and like all of your abilities upgrade, and it just gets really crazy. You throw like a grenade, and then you do as much damage as possible. And honestly, like, again, I'm sure I don't play these jobs entirely correctly, but it's a fairly straightforward rotation. It's a little bit intense because there's so much to do, but it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy playing the Machinist. I felt really powerful. My abilities feel very impactful, and it's just a lot of fun. So Machinist is my personal favorite DPS job in the game, and probably my favorite job overall. So yeah, solid S for me. Next up is the Monk. Now, okay, so the Monk was my first job. Okay, you start off as a pugilist, and, you know, me, I always like the hand-to-hand combat style classes or jobs in MMOs. I love the Monk in World of Warcraft. I am a Kung Fu practitioner. I've been practicing it for many years, and I love seeing that kind of stuff in games. So I gravitate to it. So the pugilist was my first job, and the Monk was my first, actual job that I unlocked. So I was excited about it, but I don't dislike the Monk. It's fine. It's a pretty solid, job. It's not necessarily that difficult. I didn't mention this about the Dragoon. A lot of your abilities are, like, the potency of your abilities is based on your location with the enemy that you're fighting. So you do more damage from the flank or from the rear with certain abilities, and that's kind of a thing with the Monk. It's a very big part of the Monk's thing. So positioning is a big part of it, but the actual like rotation is it's pretty simple. It's really not that difficult. Like, you just kind of cycle between 3 stances. You have a couple of OCDs to use, and it's a pretty standard rotation. It's not boring, but it's not as fun as other jobs. I would say that it's pretty middle of the road in my opinion. I don't think it's bad. It's solid. It's like, if I'm just wanting to kind of chill and have an easier time, then I might go Monk. It's fun. Like, there are some things about it that are fun, like the chakra system is pretty cool, and there are other things that are added in. So I don't hate the Monk at all. Like, I actually enjoyed it a lot, but it's not as exciting or as fun as other jobs in my opinion. So then we get to the Ninja, and this is like a good example of just what I'm saying. So the Ninja is really cool. I like the Ninja a lot. So, like, it's another melee job. It's the rogue of the game, right? And you know, you literally like get to run around like Naruto, and you can unlock really cool clams that make you look like an actual ninja, and you run around like a ninja, like jumping and flipping in the air. And you have you know, some combos and some OCDs, and then you have the ninjutsu mechanic, which is like Ten Chi Jin. Like, you have these 3 abilities, and based on what combos you do with those 3 abilities, you will activate a different ability that those combos will create. I guess it's hard to explain it, and honestly it takes quite a few brain cells to remember them all, so it's a little bit challenging in that regard, but it's a lot of fun to play. Ninja feels like a lot of fun to play. You have really cool animations, really cool abilities, and the ninjutsu mechanic is really cool. I would give it an S, but you know, what sets it back for me is trying to remember everything. It's just like, especially because I'm an alcoholic and I'm playing all these jobs, it's really hard to remember all of the ninjutsu. So I'm gonna give it an A. It's a solid A. It's probably my favorite A when it comes to DPS melee jobs. But you know, it's held back a little bit by just trying to remember everything. But it's still really cool. I don't hate it by any means. But yeah, that's where I'd put it. Next up is the Paladin. Now, okay, so the Paladin, I love Paladins. TheKephas in WoW was a Paladin, right? I'm a big fan of the Holy Knights and the whole concept and everything. And, you know, Paladins look really cool in the game, and you get the sword and board, but when it comes to the actual mechanics, Paladins are very, very simple, in my opinion. Like, it's not a very difficult rotation to do. It's honestly kind of boring. It's just a very straightforward, you know, combos and some abilities that you use, you know, throughout with a resource that you build up, kind of thing. And you know, it's okay. It's actually, like, if you're new to tanking, Paladin is the way to go, in my opinion. It's a very standard tank. It's a very straightforward tank, and I think it's really good to start with. If you're new to tanking, Paladin is a good start. It's your like, you know, go-to tank, I think. And it's not a bad job. It's just not as fun as other jobs. It's kind of boring, honestly. It's very slow, and you don't do a lot of damage, really, and you know, your rotation is pretty standard. You do, like, as you level up, you get more abilities. Your abilities will upgrade, and they'll start to look a lot cooler. You'll get a few more mechanics, but it still overall is kind of like, okay, you know, there are other jobs that kind of do the same thing, but they have a lot more fun added in with them, and the Paladin kind of does it, in my opinion. But it does have a lot of, like, tanking utility and a lot of cool things for tanking, so there is that as well. But for me, I would say that it's not one of my, I play it. Like, if I'm going to tank, I'm probably going to play a Paladin, but I would rather play other jobs in general. I want to say that the Paladin is a D, a solid D, in my opinion. It's not a bad job. It's a very great job for new tanks, but it's just kind of boring, in my opinion. The Red Mage, though, is not boring. The Red Mage is awesome. When it comes to favorite jobs in the game, the Red Mage is one of my favorite in the game. It's my favorite mage in the game. Red Mage is awesome. Unlike it's kind of like the Black Mage, and like, you have some long cast times, but you also have dual casting, which means that you have faster cast times because you get an instant cast every other cast. So it's basically like this game of, like, doing the right combo. So, like, what you're doing is you're filling up a white mage meter and a black mage meter, a black magic meter and a white magic meter, and then when those fill up, you can zoom in to melee range and use some really powerful melee abilities, and then you back out and go back to using your ranged magic abilities again. And so what you're doing is you're casting a quick spell and then using one of the longer white magic or black magic spells, and then sometimes those can proc an instant cast spell, which then allows you to use that and then get another instant cast with one of the longer spells. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's really easy. Like, once you get your head wrapped around it, it's very simple. It's a lot of fun, and the White Mage is easily, like, it's, you know, I say the Mechanic is my favorite, or the Machinist is my favorite job. Have I been calling it the Mechanic this whole time? Machinist, whatever. Machinist and Red Mage are like neck and neck. I might like playing the Red Mage more than the Machinist. It's a toss-up, man. They're both really good. I'm just going to put the Red Mage there. But I would say that, like, my two favorite jobs in the game are easily the Red Mage and the Machinist. They're really fun to play. Really fun to play. I enjoy them a lot. So, yeah, I would definitely give the Red Mage, like, one of the best jobs in the game. Maybe the best job in the game. It's a lot of fun to play. You definitely want to check it out. You don't unlock it until level 50, but it is worth checking out once you get there for sure. So, yeah, check out the Red Mage, especially if you like casters. Speaking of jobs you unlock at level 50, you have the Samurai. You can be a ninja, you can also be a samurai. And I really like the Samurai. It's probably my favorite melee job in the game. Easily my favorite. I think it's a really fun job. I like the way it looks and how it feels. I recently played through Ghost of Tsushima, however you say it, and I love that game, and I love just the samurai vibe and the style, and it's really fun. Again, I've studied, I'm not a samurai, but I've studied the art, and I love it. It's very straightforward, and it's just really cool, and Final Fantasy XIV really captures the fantasy of a samurai really well. Obviously with a lot of magic involved, but it's still really cool. So what you do as a samurai is you basically have these three, like, I'm just going to call them seals. They're called something else. I can't remember. But these three seals that you can unlock, and the way you unlock them is by executing a different combo. And then, based on how many seals you've activated from doing the different combos, you can use another ability that will do something different based on how many seals you have activated. So you're basically doing combos on top of combos, and it's really awesome. It's not particularly difficult, really. At first, it's like, okay, there's a lot here because, like you unlock it at level 50, and all the abilities have like these samurai sounding, like Japanese sounding names, so it is hard for me at least to keep track of them all, but it's a lot easier than like Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, and Fire 4. That's really confusing, but yeah, so like eventually you kind of figure it out, and it's really cool, and it's really fun. I love the samurai. I love the combo system. I love like just the whole thing. And yeah, I give the Samurai a solid S. It's my favorite melee job in the game. I don't think it's on the same level of the Red Mage or the Machinist, but I definitely think it's up there in my opinion. Other people might disagree. It's probably not the most intense. It's probably not the most, like, the other people might not like the playstyle as much. It's not particularly fast, but it's a lot of fun to play. So I really like the Samurai. Solid S for me. Then we have the Scholar. Now, the Scholar is the job that I've probably played the least. And that's because when you level up a Summoner, you're also leveling up your Scholar. So just by extension, I was leveling up my Summoner, and suddenly I have a high-level Scholar. So yeah, so I had a high-level Scholar, and I did mess with it some to get an idea for how the healing is. And yeah, so the Scholar is cool because you can have a pet, and the pet will help you heal. It's a really cool idea. And then you have a lot of like damage mitigation abilities and stuff like that, but it's still not the most straightforward healing job, and for some people that might be a good thing. Maybe you feel kind of like how I feel about the Paladin, and you don't want a straightforward healing job, but I still found it a little bit complicated, a little bit hard to keep track of everything, and it's not as random as the Astrologian, but it is still kind of like, okay, there's a lot of, it's not as straightforward, right? So I'm going to give the Scholar a B. I think that it's pretty good. It's pretty fun to play. It's a solid healer, but it's not my favorite healer by any means. But I think it's better than the Astrologian. Okay, so and just purely because the Astrologian has like the random RNG system, and I'm not a big fan of that. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Scholar. Don't really have too much to say about it. I'm sorry, I just didn't play it that much. Next up is the Summoner. Now, the Summoner is awesome. You have so many cool abilities. You can summon, primals to fight alongside you. They're obviously not in their primal form, but you can summon Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, and even, spoilers, you can even summon Bahamut to fight alongside you, and I think you eventually get to summon Phoenix. It's really cool, and it's a lot of fun. I guarantee you that I do not play the Summoner correctly, because, okay, it is about as difficult as trigonometry. like trying to figure out how to play the summoner correctly, and I'm sure it's not that difficult, but when you're a noob like me, it's extremely difficult to try to figure it out. It is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest, rotations to do in the game correctly, and so I just do the best I can, and I just fling out as much as I can, and I think, like, you know, it's really fun. Like, it's fun to play the summoner. Even if I'm not playing it correctly, I'm still having a blast literally doing it, because you're just blowing things up. When I was going through, like, dungeons, and especially, like, the Palace of the Dead, because, like, when you go into the Palace of the Dead, you go to a much higher level than you actually are, and I'm getting all these crazy abilities, and I'm just, like, exploding things, and I'm flying through the Palace of the Dead. Like, it felt really good to play a summoner. So for me, the summoner is a solid A. I really enjoy it, but I am a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit like I don't know, just like put off by it because of how complicated it is. So I probably would never take it into like a high level raid or anything like that. But it's definitely a job that I have fun playing, even if I suck as a summoner. It's just a really fun job overall, and a lot of cool ideas, a lot of fun mechanics, and just being able to summon like big primals is really cool. So yeah, gotta love the summoner. Always been a favorite in Final Fantasy for me. So yeah, I give that a solid A. Next up is the Marauder. Now, at first, I wasn't a big fan of the Marauder. I'm just going to say it. I felt like it was a lot like the Paladin, but as time went on and you unlock more abilities, I don't think it's as fun as either of the S-ranked tanks, the Dark Knight or the Gunbreaker, but I do think that the Marauder is a little bit more fun than the Paladin. And that's just because it kind of, again, feels a little bit like a DPS. You have a combos, and then you have, like, you know, it's weird. It's weird because it's very similar to how a Paladin plays. It's very similar, but it's just a little bit more fun to me. I don't know if it's just because of how it feels, because I'm this big hulking dude with a giant axe. I don't know what it is specifically about it, but, you know, it's not as amazing as the newer tanks. It's just kind of like both tanks kind of have this simplistic design around them, and both of them get more fun as you go on. Like most jobs, as you unlock more abilities, they both get more fun. But I would say that the Marauder is probably, like, I think it's more fun than the Paladin, but it's still kind of the same. It's hard to explain until you play, but it's like simple combos and, you know, abilities that use a resource. Pretty straightforward. But it's more fun to me just because of the aesthetics and how it feels. So it's as straightforward as that. And then we come to the last job, the White Mage. My favorite healer by far is the White Mage. So the reason for this is because the White Mage is very straightforward. It's very powerful healer, and it has a lot of fun, like, damaging abilities as well. You get Holy, which has always been one of my favorite spells in the Final Fantasy universe. I always like getting Holy. It always looks awesome, and it looks awesome in this game. Kind of blinds you a little bit. It's like casting Solar Flare, if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z. But it's cool, and it's fun, and you can do some cool damaging abilities. You can throw rocks at your enemy, which is cool, and yeah, it's a pretty straightforward, you know, rotation in that regard, but the healing is very easy, at least to me, very easy to wrap my head around. And because of that, as a new healer, I love playing the White Mage. It's the one I healed with the most because I understood it the most. And so if you're a new healer, I highly recommend playing the White Mage. It's weird because, you know, as a tank, I didn't like playing the Paladin as much because it is straightforward. But I did like playing the White Mage because it's straightforward. And I think that's because, in my experience, I'm much newer to healing than I am to tanking, and I'm a little bit more intimidated, and I find the act of healing to be a lot more fresh and fun than other people might. So depending on where you are in terms of healing, you might feel differently about where you would place your healers if you were doing a tier list. But for me, the White Mage is a solid A. It's my favorite healer. It's one that I like to play. I like the glams. I like being a holy mage. It's really cool, and there's a lot of cool glam ideas. You can even, like, I even unlocked a special mount specifically for my White Mage, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, I like the White Mage. I like how straightforward it is, but it's still fun. And it still has some cool abilities, and learning how they work, and you know, figuring it out, and you know, things get more and more intense as you unlock more abilities as time goes on. And you get other cool mechanics too, like you have resources that you can use to get like free heals out there, and it's really exciting. And I actually like it a lot. It's not super straightforward. It's not like just cure and that's it. No, it's a little bit more than that. And especially as you get in the higher levels, you get these lilies, and you get this like blood flower thing, which is really cool. You can do like a cool damaging ability. So yeah, I like the White Mage a lot. It's my favorite healing job by far. I'd give it a solid A. So there you guys have it. This is how I would rank all the jobs based on how much fun they are, and I just noticed I have a lot of S jobs. This game is fun. The jobs are fun. They really are. I think there's a lot of unique class design in this game, and it really is fun, for me at least, to play a lot of different jobs. Even the lower tier jobs on this list are fun to me. You know, I'm not counting them out, I'm not writing them off. I definitely want to spend more time with them, but this is where I'd rank them. And last up is the Blue Mage, okay? The Blue Mage is like a side thing. It's not quite like, you'll see it on your list if you're new to the game, and you'll see Blue Mage. Why is Blue Mage on this list? And that's because Blue Mages don't play with anybody else. They're their own thing, because as a Blue Mage, you unlock abilities, and you, like, by fighting enemies, and you learn abilities from fighting enemies and seeing them cast those abilities, and that's awesome. It's fun. Some of them you have to unlock in dungeons or raids, and there are some really powerful ones. There are some really useful ones, and so the Blue Mage was actually a lot of fun to play. I still like it. There are still tons of spells that I have to unlock, and it's really fun. Like, it really is a lot of fun unlocking all those spells, and leveling up is like just pretty straightforward. It's a straight up grind. It's not that difficult. You can't run dungeons with anybody else. You can do fates and stuff like that though, but I mean, you just kill enemies because you get so much experience from it. But that's kind of the thing. It's all about fighting enemies and learning the abilities and figuring out which abilities that you can learn. Now, I wish very much that the developers could find a way to balance the Blue Mage to be able to play with other players and have that be an official class, just because it's a really cool concept. Like, the Blue Mage was incredibly unique and incredibly fun to play, even though it's not a part of the main jobs. Like, you can't play it with other jobs, but it's still fun. I would give the Blue Mage a solid S. The only thing about the Blue Mage I don't like is that every ability has like a relatively long cast time. And, like, there are some abilities that I feel like should be instant cast. Like, they feel weird that, like, some abilities I have to cast these long cast times to make them work. And so sometimes, like, some of the abilities feel jank, but I just kind of wish they could somehow go through them all and be like, okay, we're going to balance these out, and this is going to be, you know, part of the main game. Or maybe we'll have certain abilities that we can balance, and you can only use these abilities when you're in a group with people. The rest of them you can use when you're out by yourself, or something like that. I don't know, but like obviously 1,000 needles just is not practical in a like a group fight. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculously overpowered, especially at lower levels. So, but yeah, the Blue Mage is fun. It's definitely a fun side thing. I would give it a solid S just because of how unique it is. So, anyways, you guys, I hope this was fun. I had fun ranking these jobs. I really love Final Fantasy XIV. I've been playing it for a good while now, and I'm happy to be getting these jobs leveled up. I'm actually getting a lot of them into the Bosnian Southern Front now, and so I'm actually getting to experience level 80 rotations, even though my jobs may not be at level 80. When you're in the Bosnian Southern Front, you play as if you're level 80. So I do get to experience a lot of that, and I still feel like I have a pretty good understanding. I'm excited for Endwalker to see what changes are going to come. I'm excited for the Reaper and the Sage. I want to be leveling those up as well because I'm insane, and I'm going to get every job to level 90. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I love this game. I love the jobs. That's what's really fun about the game to me. So let me know what your favorite job is in the comments below, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.